Hey, welcome along. It's Tuesday evening. We're talking about things to do with ministry with children and young people. I can't remember. I don't think I've actually put last week's up, but we'll put this week's up as well in the next couple of days, and everyone can see what we've talked about. So we've been working through the Here to Stay pillars, and I probably said this before, but I thought it was helpful to point out that why are we doing this? Firstly, um, when we were in the process of coming into Southside, we explored some different sort of schemes that would give you what are the key things that we want to do with young people. And I believe Rod was in the room when we decided that, yes, Here to Stay was probably the one that more people were looking at. So let's stick with that.
Yep.
And since then, at a synod level, with the Project Plenty, the children, youth, young adults, and families group said, let's work with this and try and roll it out across the synod. And I'll stop playing with the earpiece. And as we've done that, the rest of the discipleship groups have said, hey, this actually applies to everyone. So it's being rolled out as the discipleship model for all of the Uniting Church in Queensland, no matter what age. So why is this helpful? It's helpful for what we're doing at Southside. It's helpful for all that's going on in the synod. And of course, what applies in youth ministry most often applies everywhere else, as we know. So tonight we're exploring serve in mission. What serve in mission? What does that mean? I'll let Rob write it down.
Yep. I lose track otherwise.
And so it's that sense of when we're doing ministry, when we're in mission, we want to be involving the young people. So one of the traps we can often fall into is we do ministry and mission for people, and it's far more effective when we do mission and ministry with people. So that challenge of how do we include young people in our ministry? And I guess, actually, no, I won't say the thing that's obvious. I'll ask the question, how do you both see us doing mission and ministry with children and involving them? So that I don't give my answer, which is going to be your answer. So can you think of ways that within Southside, within the areas that you're involved with, you see young people being involved in the ministry and mission of the church?
If I was mean, I'd say Kylie can go first. But I guess if we're looking at general ideas of service in things that the church does, so we can include them in things that are needed to be done in our worship, in our other areas where, for example, it might be in property maintenance and things like that. In worship would include the simple, obvious things like readings and that, but maybe the audio-visual stuff, any preparation, having them involved in setup and doing things and actively giving their time and things. Garage sale is a good example of service when we do that. Where else might we at Southside be doing it? I'm sure I'll leave some for Kylie. Safest.
Fun. We've got Fun in the Sunday. We've got BB leaders, Girls Brigade, the brigade leaders, because they're kind of young adults, but they do start a bit younger. We've got Jaffa junior leaders and senior leaders. We've got people who cook and help. We've got actors and things at the Saturday night service. We've got people who play, musicians who play at the Saturday night service. We used to have the kids walk the communion stuff down in Tarragindi to present it to the front table. We sometimes use the older kids to help the younger kids during playtime, after like morning tea time, and during Sunday school. And we use our own children when we need things carried.
Awesome. We're doing really well, aren't we? I hadn't thought of half of those things. So, well, good on for us. So the obvious one I thought of was Fun in the Sunday, where we have the high schoolers as junior leaders helping out. and yes, Jaffa. And I guess the challenge with those sorts of things is how do we involve the kids and how do we get them to help to shape the program? So the example that springs to mind for me is Jaffa. And so our training with the young people for Jaffa, we have 3 sessions for our junior leaders. So junior leaders are those in grade 6 that we think, yes, meet the mark and would be good leaders. And even sometimes those that, oh, I'm not sure, and they normally step up and it's really good. And so our first training is the basics. What's going to happen? What's your role? What do you need to do? Training number 2, which we've just done with our junior leader this year, is a review of term 1, where each week we sit down and note how they've gone and what they've done. And so we give some feedback and talk a bit more about leadership and team. And then session 3, join us. Session 3 looks at evaluation of the year, and we did it a bit different last year and had a nice dinner together, and that was lovely. And so, I think it was about 3 years ago now. Hi, Russ.
Hi.
Welcome along. Good to see you.
Welcome.
That beard is getting big and bushy.
Yes, for
So-
hospital.
Oh, there we go. So a couple of years ago, the junior leaders fed back that it would be really good to have a time where the kids could sort of acknowledge how they're going, feeling. And so after that, each week in our digging deeper time, we start with what are your highs and lows? So what's going on in your week? What's been the best bit? What's been the worst bit? So yeah, it's easy. And we all know that some of the suggestions they're going to give are going to be rubbish. One of the kids once said, oh, we need to do something better at afternoon tea. What about meatballs and spaghetti? Something else that's like, yeah, that's a lovely idea. No. Sandwiches are easy and wonderful. You don't need meatballs and spaghetti for afternoon tea. I think the same person thought that the Jaffa Junior Leader outings should be like to Movie World and stuff like that. It's like, no, bowling is just so sometimes we might hear things and go, oh, no, but other times we need to listen to them and go, what do you think? What's going on? And sometimes it might be, okay, you've said this and no, but how does that relate to and, change things? One of the tick boxes on the SMC program form is, have you involved young people in the decision making? Which I often tick no, but that's all right. Or I fudge some sort of answer as if I might considered someone. But yeah, part of our challenge is not just involving them in mission, but how do we hear from them what needs to change and what we can do? Can you think of any other examples of where you've seen that happening?
Do you mean the asking?
Yeah, or the involving them in the idea, setting up of.
We sat on the tennis court.
Yep. So we had the feedback of the morning tea type stuff. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. So when we a couple of months ago when we had our combined service, different table groups talked about how they found gathering together with people from different communities and what they'd seen from other centres or the churches that they'd like to see at Southside. And so we got the young people to have a conversation about that as well. So it's easy in those conversations to go, young people go and do something else. And so yes, involving them in that. And all their answers were fed back, including my wonderful son's, let's build a theme park on the tennis courts. Going to be the smallest theme park in history, but that's all right.
Have you put that to RMT yet, Richard? That might be a good idea.
I don't know where it got to, but it was clearly on the document that listed all the things that
theme park.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's one of the challenges of going, okay, that's obviously not going to happen. Well, several other words I wanted to say, but I won't say that in case my child is within listening ears.
No.
But it's that sense of if we put that there, then at least that encourages you to go, okay, I can give other ideas. When we were looking at names for Southside, we put all the ones that you suggested, including Yeet and with some other.
What?
They wanted to call it Yeet Uniting Church. That would have been great, wouldn't it, Russ?
Weird.
Yes. Yeet was the word of the day back then.
Very good.
I don't think we don't seem to say Yeet anymore. Must have moved past it.
I know.
Yes.
What does that stand for?
It was just a word. It sort of meant really good. It's like Yeet. I don't know.
Oh, all right.
The young people said it was silly.
Yeah, you're talking about how you involve some of the things that we've done at Boys Brigade is the guys do have an achievement program, and within some restrictions and some suggestions, they have a choice of some of the things that they want to do, or even suggest that they would like to do this. So depending on that age group and the leader's ability as to how much that may get included. And this year, I know Ruben has asked them what some of the topics that they would like to do for devotions. I'm not sure if that's where dinosaurs came from as the first option, but that question was asked. Not all their, as you said, not all their suggestions will be carried out with, but at least some of them will influence the way or the readings that are chosen, etc. So they've been given some opportunities in those particular ways. And obviously in some of the activities that we do is question, what do you want to play, or which way do you want to go when we're at something on a camp or along those lines. But the feedback might well be taken, not feedback, some of the influence might well be taken by the inclusion of some of the ideas from younger leaders and how they felt as when they were at that age, including it. So it's a longer feedback cycle, but
yep.
I was there, I would have liked to have done this, therefore now that I'm a leader, I can give that opportunity. The issue with that, of course, might be you end up having things called yeet and no one knows what you're talking about, because that was 5 years ago.
That's right.
But it is an opportunity of some feedback or some feed forward, I guess, is probably a better way of putting it.
Yep. Yes. And their cycle is a bit smaller than others of us in the room. But
yes.
When we remember back to when we were their age.
You know, was that age?
I was a boy, I used to do this. Yes, so yeah, it's that challenge of how do we listen and how do we involve. And as we involve them, then we encourage them to step out in faith. One of the things that we discover as we go along, that doing ministry actually builds our faith. That as we step out, then we have to trust in God. And so, hey, I need to trust that God's going to get me through this, rely on him, that builds our faith. And so if we're just doing ministry for young people, then that they're missing something. But as we involve them, then they're learning, what does it mean to trust? I know back in Newcastle, there was a couple of times that young people said, oh, we'd really like a youth group night on such and such. One was some movie and comic book called Scott Pilgrim. Yes.
Right.
And so a couple of them said, we want a Scott Pilgrim night. It's like, right, you run it. And it was wonderful at the end of the night. I'm just going, they don't listen very much, do they? They go, oh, really? Oh, you have to get them to be quiet. Guess what we do for you every week. So it can also be that building, they start to experience the frustrations that the leaders experience and learn from that. And hopefully the next week they're a little more contained because, we didn't like it when people were doing that for us. But yeah, it's also, how do you build them up and push them that bit further? So yeah, this pillar is really about, building their faith through action. That, we can do ministry for them, but it's far better if we do ministry with them. And it's exciting when you two were talking about all the different ways that you've seen around Southside, because yes, sometimes you look and go, oh, we're probably just making it all up ourselves, but yes, we clearly are involving some of the young people. Yeah. Any other ideas or comments?
Fun on the Sundays was good.
Yeah,
Isn't that coming up?
it is coming up rather a little too quickly, but that's all right.
In July?
In June, end of June.
Not June. Oh, okay.
6 weeks.
Yeah, thanks
6
for telling
weeks
me that, Carly.
Did you see
Woo.
Kylie's face expression change when she's 6 weeks? That
Oh,
close.
No, it'll be good.
One of the things that, as we look at Here to Stay, Richard,
Yep,
or everybody, is doing just what we took. What we did then is looking at examples of how we at Southside are doing it, consciously or subconsciously, and recognizing that many of these things can be very natural, very simple to implement, and you may well be doing it. It's just a question of, do you need to do it? Words skip my mind. More intentionally, or is that just the way it happens? And intentionally just I think is really going to mean that you ensure it gets done. The way it happens often at the moment is it may be overlooked, or the opportunity may be overlooked. Even though that's what you would normally do, you may just forget to include young Russell in this activity, whereas had you intentionally said about it, you would have said, what are all the kids? Yes, we'd better include Russell.
Yes.
And there's quite a few things in the and Here to Stay. You say we are doing that, but we just did it intentionally. We'll ensure everyone gets that experience. And it's good for people to realize that it's being done. Often it's not realized, not that we want to pat ourselves on the back too often, but sometimes it's good just to acknowledge it, or to acknowledge others who are doing it, and make them aware of the fact that there are benefits in continuing to do it that way and not giving up. If that was an outcome of not having the feedback you expected, if they're all food, you obviously can pick something up that maybe the food needs to change, even though you're not going to have spaghetti meatballs.
Yes.
And I think maybe it wasn't the quite timing, but did strawberry jam come into those sandwiches at one stage and seemed to become relatively popular?
Yes. That was much later, but yes. So yes, it can be, okay, we're not going to go to meatballs, but what thing can we change? What can we fiddle with? And yeah, I think those thoughts are really helpful, Rod, that sometimes we need to stop. And I think in the Christian world, we find that we fall into the trap of, oh no, we're not doing this, this, and this. And sometimes we need to stop and go, well, what are we actually doing? And go, yay, let's celebrate the things that we're doing. And sometimes it's, let's celebrate the things we're doing and now make them intentionally we're doing it. Because we've been plodding along and it's just been happening. Now let's intentionally do that deliberately and build on it. So yeah, absolutely. When we look at any of these pillars, it's about, what are we doing? And are we doing that intentionally, or have we just stumbled along? And that's wonderful. And we can build some intentionality about that. Because it's obviously, the more intentional we can be, the better we'll go. Russell has his hand up. How polite.
Okay. So this is going to be a long shot, but I got a shirt. Can you see that?
Yep. Men's walk the
Yeah.
talk. Yep.
So it's only for men, any age, kids and all. Just talking, walking, over Nippy Parklands. So it's for all ages. Just want to put it out there.
Yep.
It's good. It's good. Jeff's my support worker. He runs it.
Awesome. Yeah. It's great. Yeah, good chance to talk. Good chance. The more we explore different options and see what's out there and what we can connect with, things like that, that's great. Because yes, that's a chance for all ages to sit and talk to one another and encourage one another and learn from one another.
Also, the sponsorship is sponsored, so you get free coffee.
Oh.
You should bring it
Shame.
to me.
Well, you get 2 free coffees, one in the morning, one at the beginning, and one at the end.
wow.
Cool.
It's amazing.
For those that like coffee, I'm sure that's an awesome, wonderful thing. For those of us who are strange and weird, then that's all right. We'll just be strange and weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we can find opportunities like that where we're gathering together, people of different ages and working together, that's a great example. Thanks, Russell.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's that challenge of, okay, things like that. Do we join with that, or is that too far away? And can we start something similar around our area? I don't know what happens at them, but there's things like, walking church where I think people go and do things like that and just walk and discuss and stuff like that. Sounds too energetic for me, but I'm sure others love it. Russ.
Sorry. And it's a safe place as well.
Yep.
So everything's confidential. Doesn't leave the walk.
Yep. That's cool.
So
Yeah.
it's got to be safe.
Yep. Yeah. That's awesome and a wonderful opportunity. And it's good that you're hooking in there. And yes. I guess as we explore new things in Southside, there's lots of different opportunities of things that we can think about. That's one to keep in the back of our brains. We better wrap up so that Mr. Herman can get to his next engagement. Got a flight from Paris to who knows where. And
work out what that is. Yes. Yeah. Just
So-
back my head and we get the
thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. We've missed you, Russell, so welcome back. Thank you. We'll catch you all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.